Actually, season's greetings, the
Seasons.
whole season to
Yes.
you, my brother. How are things?
Oh, well, pretty good. It's good to have you once again. And let me just say to the listening public to this program, which we've been doing for a few months now for this year, from us at the program, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, season's greetings to all of you from this particular program, and say how much we appreciate you joining us and participating. And this morning will be no less. If you don't have a medical health area you want to mention, you can just call in and say season's greetings, and that will be quite in order as well. So, Doc, how's everything?
It's going. I must say, Weber. The joy of Christmas is not as joyous as it used to be, but sometimes you got to give the good Lord thanks for life and for living, and for most of us out there, the best thing we can do is be safe in these times.
And I dare say that at least here it's a little more hopeful than it was last December, in that the pandemic. Yes. Go ahead, Doc.
No, absolutely correct. If you remember, it's just about now when we released the first set of the vaccines last year. They were just coming out with the vaccines, and everybody was, a lot of people at that time was rushing towards getting the vaccine at that point in time, even though we still had the hesitancy around. And we have come a long way, and so we have had data for at least 1 year that we can look at, and I'm pretty sure with just being a layman out there, when you look at the data out there, it seems very striking, and it seems like from where we are and where we're going, that something out there is helping us, and it's working for each and every one of us. And so we need to get on board and see how we can protect not only ourselves, but for each other, especially with this Yuletide season coming around. We not to think about ourselves, but for each and every one around us.
Hence, it is fair to say, Doc, that we're largely better off now than we were this time last year, primarily because of the vaccine.
Absolutely. I think that we're seeing more and more that with the vaccines that we are progressing to some semblance of normalcy, and even with some of the new variants and stuff that are coming out, we have enough data that is satisfying to say that we are getting some help from the vaccine, and that it has done some kind of a work for each and every individual out there. So you're absolutely correct, Rebel.
Let's talk about first the new variant, Omicron, and then we will talk about the booster or the third shot. So where are we with that? First, in reference to globally, and then in terms of its presence, as far as you know, in the Caribbean areas.
Yes, and we are looking at some of the data, and what we're seeing now for the Caribbean itself. I think there were one case which picked up at the airport in Trinidad of the Omicron. Our CMO has pushed out that we don't have any in Antigua. So for the Caribbean itself, it looks like we're doing okay so far. But what the data is showing out there, that they think that this Omicron variant was based out of South Africa, and but the data is showing more and more that it was probably out in some of the other European countries before they noticed it in South Africa. So we're now seeing worldwide a combination, the Delta and the Omicron variant being coming out, and it seems like the Omicron variant is going to be the predominant strain. One of the things that the data is showing out there, Weber, is that the Omicron is very contagious. It spreads easily. It's, for some reason, it seems to be busting through most of the defense that we have in terms of spreading. But in terms of infectious and symptomatic behavior, it is not as bad as the Delta or even the Alpha Beta that we had seen before. And that tells you a volume level about variation, which people are like, oh, this is varied and that, we're not accustomed. No, it tells you a lot. And that, as we spoke about and we've talked about in many of the programs, how viruses easily variate. And that's because it's such a small particle that any little change in temperature or anything can cause it to flip a nucleotide, and that will make it a variant. And in most variants, you can have one which we talked about before, what we call a nonsense variant, where the change is there, but it doesn't do anything to the virus itself. And then you have the ones that can change and become very aggressive and virulent. And so what we're seeing here is that the Delta was very, very aggressive type of virus. It destroys you quickly and stuff, but it didn't spread as quickly as what we're looking at with the Omicron. And it's the flip side to that. This one spreads, very contagious, but it doesn't do the destruction like the Delta variant is doing. And that goes to tell you that virus, when they get an opportunity to replicate, they can change. And it happens every day, and it happens. You get nonsense changes, and you have sense changes. The sense changes are the ones that are aggressive. The nonsense is that it's change, but nothing really goes different with it. It has a change in the nucleic acid, but that little change that occurred doesn't do anything to you. Hence, when we talk about ability to multiply, and ability to multiply progressively, and giving it an opportunity to change, we now start to talk about vaccines and vaccination. Because if you are unvaccinated, it gives you the virus an ability to live in you, multiply in you, and it gives you 2 weeks window before your body can develop these antibodies to stop it. And if it multiplies in you, it gives it, again, that opportunity to become a different variant. Hence, what we talk about when we say get vaccinated. Now, when you are vaccinated, you have these antibodies around. It will attack that virus, and it stops it from replicating. It doesn't get to replicate as much or as many times as if you are unvaccinated. And that's just the simplest way to understand how the vaccine works and why it is so important for us to get on board, and how it helps us. It stops the replication in a quicker time than if you are unvaccinated, where it takes you 2 weeks to develop these antibodies. When you're vaccinated, you have these antibodies on board, and you will, at some point in time, the disease will come to you. You will catch the disease, but because you're already prepared, you will fight it off in a quicker time. You don't have, the virus doesn't get the ability to multiply, and so forth. It decreases the chance of it changing, and it decreases the chance of it become a variant again and again. This is what the scientists are trying to explain to each and every one. So as much as you say, oh, you're still getting the disease or whatever, it is not as bad, and you don't give that virus an opportunity to replicate. So in essentiality, you are helping to spread and to protect yourself and protect each and every individual from these viruses. Now, the data is coming out more and more that with the vaccines and with the booster, it even protects you from the Omicron variant, and so therefore, it's important for us to jump on board. I know our segue into this is the booster.
Yes.
And the booster seems to be very important, and it seems now, and again, the data. All I'm saying to the general public out there and to your listening orders, even though I say season greetings, Merry Christmas, is that the data is showing that the vaccine is helping us, and with the booster, the Omicron variant doesn't spread, and it helps give you some protection against it. It does. It really does. And that's what the data is showing. Now, one of the things I wanted to present with the data, because people need to understand what's going on. When the first cases came out of South Africa, I think they picked up about 176 cases, and 76% of the new variant, the Omicron variant, were people asymptomatic going to the hospital for surgery. Again, when people talk to you, you got to listen carefully and understand what had happened when they picked up this variant. So 76% of these people who went to the hospital for elective surgery, just going there, were normal, no symptoms whatsoever, and this is how they picked up the variant. Only 4 persons had respiratory, 4% had respiratory difficulties or any problem, and only about 1% or so were in the intensive care unit from this variant. Again, the numbers are very small level. They're not bad. So the disease is not a very virulent disease when you get the Omicron. But what they were noting again and again and again, which is going worldwide, even though some of the people were fully vaccinated, they had no symptoms. But the people who end up in the ICU, who end up with respiratory symptoms, were the ones who were not vaccinated. Nobody pays me to say these things, but I'm just saying, if you read most of the data that's out there, the good journals with good solid impact studies, you will realize that the data is showing more and more that if you are vaccinated, and furthermore, if you are boosted, you can protect yourself against this new variant, and it works very well. The booster does work. The other thing about the booster, it is quite safe to mix and match the booster because it works just effectively. And what they're showing, we get a better response antibody-wise. The tighter number of the antibodies that you develop gets better if you have a mixed heterologous vaccination. So for all of us in the islands who were getting the AstraZeneca as our regular vaccination, you can boost yourself with a Pfizer or a Moderna, something different. I'm not an advocate for AstraZeneca. I'm saying the more antibodies you get on board, the better it is. And so if you have a variable vaccine, something different from the one you took before as your booster, you have more and different types of antibodies on board so that you can protect yourself from the regular alpha, beta, delta, and the Omicron variant. You can protect yourself with a good booster. So you are allowed to mix match the booster. I haven't seen any data where you put the AstraZeneca with the Johnson & Johnson, but I know you could put one of those, the messenger RNA vaccines, the Moderna and Pfizer, with the adenovirus surrogate, the Sinopharm, the Sputnik. You can mix those two together, and they give you a good solid boost. Also, for the general public to understand that if you've had the disease, you do have some native antibodies on board. What the data is showing, it doesn't last as long as if you do get the vaccine. And so therefore, even if you have the disease, you should really try and get one of the vaccines on board, because you would then develop other antibodies, and so you would have a good solid immunity from native immunity and some active immunity from your vaccines that are out there.
Doc, let me ask, in reference to getting the virus in the first instance, and then let's say you were unvaccinated, then you recover, you have a negative test. What's the advice in reference to afterward getting the vaccine?
Yes. Well, initially, and I like to preface these things again, Weber, because a lot of people talk and they don't look at what's going on around there. They don't read enough of the data before they start to talk. Initially, the protocol that we were following was 90 days out. Once you have the disease and you can go ahead and get the vaccines 90 days out, make sure you're completely recovered. But recently, again, as we move along and we learn more and more, most places are now saying to you, you can get the vaccine once you're negative and you have no basic symptoms. You could just go ahead and get the vaccine. It seems like it works well and there is no problem. Again, most importantly, Weber, is to make sure you have no symptoms and you have a negative PCR that says that you have no disease, or even the antigen that you have no disease and you're in good shape. You can do it as soon as possible. Once that recovered, 2-3 weeks out, once you're cleared, they ask that you go ahead and get the vaccine. But the original protocol, which was coming out of the U.S. and England, was 90 days wait before you get the vaccine. Now, what we're seeing now is that with the mandates and people are trying to use this as an opportunity to not go to work or say, well, you tell me don't come back because I have, and it's 90 days out. Yes, you can use the 90-day protocol, but I'm saying to you, and the data is saying, and people are doing, that you can just go get vaccinated once you're cleared of the disease, Weber. That's what the data is showing.
The fact that you underscored, Doc, that you should make sure that you don't have any symptoms. Does it suggest that if you, while you are positive, once you still have the symptoms, once you know that you still have the virus, so to speak, it is not a good idea, you should not have the vaccine at that point?
You are absolutely correct again, Weber. You're batting 100% today. Yes. What they're noting is that if you do have the disease, remember now, Weber, and this, sometimes you look at things and you say, wow, this makes common sense. It really makes common sense to understand, again, Weber, and I touched that a little bit earlier, but now I'm going to use it to answer your question. There's that 2 weeks window. Now, if you have the virus and you are positive, that 2 weeks window for the body to develop the antibodies, that virus is multiplying like crazy. And so you have plenty virus on board, and then your body's now trying to fight it off by throwing everything at them. And this is where the destructive period's there until you get your antibodies on to protect you. But now you put in a vaccine. And when you put the vaccine in, you're doing the same thing again. And remember, our vaccines are a little bit different from the virus itself. We use viral particles, we use pieces, we even use a killed virus to do that. And so what you're doing, you're doubling the system is now overloaded in responding to, one, the virus you have on board, and two, the vaccine. And so your body is now working double time to protect you and build antibodies against these other things. Even though the vaccine itself doesn't do any harm to you, your body is still working to build antibodies against those. And it is working to build antibodies against the virus itself that's multiplying. So you have what we call a double whammy Weber going on. And so it puts a lot of strain on the body. And so it's not a good idea to be infected and then take a vaccine. And we have had people who have done that in the past and have met with very bad problems doing so. And that answers all the questions that you need to answer about vaccine, Weber. Again, you use these things to help you understand how vaccines work. That 2 weeks window is what you need to build the antibodies. And if you're going to put something else inside, it needs another two weeks window to build antibodies. So you have a double whammy going on at that point in time. I hope most people who are listening can visualize what I'm saying. And I hope you can understand how I answered your question there, Weber. And we addressed it a little bit earlier on when I spoke about the 2 weeks window that you need to multiply. And this is where the variance and all of those come in. Okay? And that's what's important.
And that's partially one of the reasons why, you remember when we got the vaccines, when the vaccines came, and then they said, listen, you can go and get your first dose, but you must wait a certain period of time before you get the second dose.
The second dose, and that's correct.
Right, so that explains the reason why.
It explains a lot of things, Weber. It really does explain a lot of things, and people need to understand these. And you see, some people are like, oh, the vaccine killing people, and not realizing some persons that already had the disease, they were symptomatic, they never really made sure they didn't have any symptoms, went to court and get another vaccine. And so they had double jeopardy. It was two sets of your body. It's very hard for you to get over some of those things, and that has happened in the past.
Let us know, Doc, whether this is ill-advised. A person is unvaccinated. They get up this morning, they're feeling abnormal, and based on some of the symptoms that cause the abnormality, they figure, maybe I'm getting this thing. So you rush quickly and you move to the health center and he says, I'm here, I would like the vaccine today. Is that advisable?
No, it's really not. And again, and if you note, and one of the things you note, when you go to the health center to get the vaccines, they ask you specific questions. And if any of those are lit up, if any one of those strikes something to the person who's going to give you the vaccine, they will say to you, we're not going to. Remember, we take a temperature. They take a temperature. They ask you a couple of questions. Your allergies, how you're feeling, whatever. If you have fever or anything, they will stop you from that. Some people, because they feel sick, they get nervous, feel they get in the disease, try to hide some of these symptomatology from the person given the vaccine, and that becomes a problem. But it's not advisable. And if you do feel symptoms coming on, the best thing to do, it's very simple and straightforward. Let's just go take a test. Take an antigen test, take a PCR test. Make sure you don't have the disease before you run and go get the vaccine. It's not advisable at all to go there feeling sick and take a vaccine. Absolutely not. Remember questions we ask. Remember we talk about allergies. We talk about blood clotting events and this and that. Those questions are asked before you get the vaccine. Remember, some people tell you take a paracetamol before, because we would like to know that you don't have any underlying problems which will affect the way how the vaccine works, or it make the vaccine double what your problem is. And so when I say double, I mean if you do have the virus and you're going to take another vaccine, it doubles your trouble.
There is a view out there now, Doc, that now that some of the islands, certain St. Kitts and Nevis has passed what they used to call the figure, the 70%.
70%.
Right. They have, St. Kitts and Nevis indeed has passed 80% now. And there's this view or this rationale that those who are now unvaccinated, who might be in the 30% or 20%, they are given a reasoning or an argument not to get vaccinated. You say what?
They really should try and get the vaccine. And as I say again, and look at what's happening with this new variant. And it's because of that stuff. The virus is not going to the people who are vaccinated. It's going to that 20%, if you said 80% that's vaccinated, and it multiplies in that percentage. We do best at 100%, which is what we're seeing with things like mumps, measles, and rubella. Once we drop our guard and we decreases the herd immunity number on those diseases, the disease become rampant again, which we spoke about previously in our programs when I talk about New York City and California, trying to have places like Pakistan and everybody done vaccinated against MMR. Let's stop. And then what we see, a rise in the disease. Again, we cannot take this thing lightly. 100% immunity is what is going to be effective. It stops the spread. It stops the multiplication of the disease. You should not feel comfortable. And those are the ones that I worry more about than anyone. The ones who are unvaccinated come in to a situation and say, okay, all right, you're vaccinated. Well, I'm coming in. And I don't need to know because the disease is that. No, it's very erroneous. The disease is still out there. It's very rampant still, even though we've got it under good control. And all you take is just one little droplet to get to that person who is not vaccinated, and we start the trend all over again. And again, Weber, look at what we're looking at, the variant. I tell people all the time, there is this discussion as to where this virus comes from or where it is. The fact that the virus can variate or change with it multiplying, it is quite appropriate to think that when this virus was living in the bats or whatever, wherever they were, they keep multiplying, and they variated. And so when it variated, it jumped species. It's very simple, logical, scientific evidence that this. And what we're seeing now with the variations that we're seeing is particularly important for us to understand multiplication of virus, how it spread, and immunity, because they can vary it. The people who are in that 20%, because 80% is vaccinated, no, it's not appropriate, because you can be what we call a living well. You can be the source of another set of infection. The virus is still pretty much predominating, and it's out there, and it's flipping, and it's moving around. So even though we're 80% vaccinated, when the virus goes to someone who's vaccinated and they can't do anything, it needs to go somewhere else, and so it will try and jump out. The person that he's going to go to is the one who is not vaccinated. So that same 20% who is unvaccinated still has the potential to, one, get the virus to stay on them and to multiply many more virus than the person who is vaccinated. So therefore, you become now a big source of multiple virus, which can variate. And that's what I'm saying to you. You become a very good host when you're not vaccinated, and that's what the virus like. They're looking for people who are not vaccinated because it's easier for them to survive and live in. And that's what we're looking at.
By the way, if you'd like to be a part of the conversation, you can call now. Call in 469-1700. You have a question or comment, or you just want to send a greeting, that is okay as well. Doc, now, first of all, what is the situation in Antigua? How are we doing in terms of persons taking the vaccine? And secondly, do we anticipate some changes because the islands, most of the islands are sort of opening up, certainly St. Kitts and Nevis, so they're bringing in more folks now, more planes, more tourists, more passengers, etc. Do we anticipate we might see a little increase?
Absolutely, Weber, and in Antigua we're noticing some changes again. The rise every time Europe and the USA changes and the numbers start to go up, we notice the trend that it drifts right back down to the islands, and the trend is like that. We do follow them, we come behind, and months behind, and then we see the changes. I know St. Kitts Nevis, there's about 70-80%, but what the numbers are saying is 80% of the adult population. Right. I think Antigua look at the number as total population, and that's what we're looking at. And so we're about 65% fully vaccinated when we look at our total number. So we're looking at total number, where you guys look at your adult population versus your kid population numbers, and so you're way ahead of Antigua with those numbers. We look at places like Spain. Spain, I think, is about 85% vaccinated now. That's incredible stuff. Chile is about 80-something percent fully vaccinated, and we got to look at places like the South American countries who are doing these things and are going out there. I think Brazil is up to 60% fully vaccinated. The U.S. is 60-something right now. They're still struggling to get their numbers up. The UK is about 65. Again, the new variant is making it, that's not making it difficult because most of the clients who have the disease are asymptomatic. Again, as I said, and it's not as destructive as the alpha, beta, and delta variants that we are seeing. It is more contagious. It spreads easier when we look at the virus. So we're looking at a good percentage of the people. We're going to see changes which are coming because we have already seen some changes. Antigua had started taking antigen tests for the people coming in, and once we found out about this new variant, they stopped that and they went back to PCR. So most of the islands are doing PCR. If the numbers go up and they're very cautious about what they're doing, I'm going to see changes again. Places like Tortola, the BVI, they have changed. They're doing antigen tests and they're letting the people who are vaccinated come in, which I think it's quite appropriate. You have gone out of your way so that you can get back to some semblance of normalcy, and we need to do that. Again, Weber, as I say, 100% vaccination is where to go, which is what we have with mumps, measles, rubella, and all of those. They're 100% because every time you are born as a kid, everybody gets it. So Weber, for all these years we've been doing, and you're looking at mumps, measles, and rubella, 63, 64, 65, that these things were developed, the vaccines were there. And notice how close they were in years, Weber, that these vaccines develop, because people are saying, oh, you can't develop vaccines so quickly. Mumps, measles, and rubella, 63, 64, 65. Bam, bam, bam. Within a year's time, we develop these vaccines, right? I'm just giving you these. And so it is quick that we develop these vaccines. But when you look at back in 60s, where now they're mandated, and again, it's a mandate. And people just talk and talk and talk. I tell you my experience the other day in the office, so off Weber. But you mandate these vaccines back then. And so if we were giving every baby that's born mumps, measles, and rubella since 1965, of course, we are 100% fully vaccinated against mumps, measles, and rubella. You could go down the road and pick 10 people, Weber, and out of those 10 people, all of them had mumps, measles, and rubella, and it's mandated. And so, therefore, we are 100% vaccinated against mumps, measles, and rubella. That's why we don't see these. When they drop those mandates in Pakistan, mumps, measles, and rubella start to rise. So we're 100% vaccinated. So that's what we should aim for, 100% vaccination, because then we know that we live comfortable. There's no little nest of the virus where you can go and hide and live properly and multiply and change. And so that's important. But when we look at the world's data and what's going on with this new variant and another uptick on the virus, especially during the colder months, we're going to be expecting some changes in the islands. But Weber, it's been, 2 years now we're dealing with this? We got to learn to live with this stuff. And so we're going to have to do what is right, follow the protocol, get vaccinated, so that we can just move on. And hopefully we don't get the bad disease where people going on the respirator and are dying, and that we might just get the mild forms where you bounce and go back, and so we can move on with our life. What I wanted to tell you the other day I was in the office actually in Nevis, up by the Social Security building. I'm up there with Dr. Gill, and a young lady came in with her child, and child had a disease entity, but naturally and normally, as a physician, you ask the appropriate question for kids. And for babies or young kids, you ask a couple of questions. These are written questions that we ask for years. You are trained to do so. You are indoctrinated in medical school to ask these questions. And look at this, how funny it is, Weber, and the questions are, is the baby full term? And I said, is the baby full term? She said, yes. And then I said, when the baby came out, did the baby come out crying? And what we call an APGAR score. So if you come out crying, we know you're a healthy baby. If you take a little while, before you start to cry, they start to think things, and couple little things that we use. And Weber, what's the third question we always ask the parent? Is the baby fully vaccinated? Typical 3 questions you ask when dealing with a baby, and you might ask if there was sickle cell disease or sickle cell trait, but you ask, is the baby full? So I asked the family, is the baby fully vaccinated? And they jumped at me. You understand what I'm saying, Rebel? They jumped at me, and I'm like, no. Y'all get this straight. This is a typical question we used to ask, and we still ask, when we're dealing with kids. When they come to your office, those are I'm not talking about COVID or anything. I said, look how you all are. How you all are. How these things change. And nothing has really changed, Weber. It's still the same.
Okay, Doc, just let me take this. I'm sorry. Good evening. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes.
Yes, I'd like to say Merry Christmas to Dr. Thwaites and thanking him for helping us with his knowledge. But Dr. Thwaites, let me ask you a question, please. Do you have to take the booster shot? I was very sick when I took the AstraZeneca, whatever you call it here.
Okay, that's your question?
Yes,
okay,
you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Doc?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Thank you for the greetings, sweetie. I really appreciate that. All of us need to have a wonderful Yuletide season, man. We need to. Look, and I know a lot of people had some reactions to the vaccine. And that tells you that the vaccine is really working, that your immune system is kicking in, and it's doing a good job in developing the antibodies, which for some people they get sick. Some people, I was sick for 2 or 3 days. Now, this is what I would say to that person is that I think that she should get the booster shot. We have accustomed to giving boosters. We always give tetanus boosters. We've given hepatitis boosters in the past. These things, sometimes that's what we have to do to get the good, solid immunity. I know you had a reaction, but majority of times with the 3rd dose, the reaction is very limited, and it's not as bad as the 1st and 2nd dose. So most people don't even react much to the booster shot. So if you've had good, solid response, which is what it seems like you had with your first 2 doses, your 3rd dose more than likely is not going to be that way. And when you go ahead and get your 3rd booster shot and you see that it's not that bad, you call me up and tell me thank you, okay? But it's usually the 3rd dose is not as bad because you already have the immune antibodies on board, and so it doesn't affect you as bad as the first 2 doses. And that's what we know. And I'm sorry you had a bad reaction, but it tells you that you're a strong person, and your body fights off these things in a quick fashion. Okay, but yes, you can go ahead and take your 3rd shot. I don't think your reaction is going to be as bad as your first 2 doses. But remember, that's what my point was with that with the kid, is just the way how we have changed and start to think. When it's just a natural thing to be vaccinated. It's just not natural, but it's just a normal thing to be vaccinated. And I was just doing my job, which is what I was trained to do, and that's how I was trained to do. But then I'm being fight down. I'm like, no, I'm not talking about the COVID vaccine. I'm talking about the regular vaccine. But it's so apropos, Weber, that look at this. We are accustomed to do this. This is written in stone. This is what we do as physicians, and here it is now, we're fighting against another vaccine which can help us. And just so strange the way how we look at things. And when that hit me, I was like, this is really, really strange. We do this all the time. We've been doing this for years. 252 years of vaccine, Weber. 252. Nothing has changed dramatically. Everything is pretty much the same. So why is it a big difference now? Why? And the vaccine hasn't changed. It has not. It's the same You can find any type you want. Any variations of vaccines are out there. They're all there. I think the last recorded different types of vaccines that they have over there was another 122 or something of that. Different types of vaccines out there. Any one you want that can suit your boat or float your boat, it's available for you. If you want the kill virus form that we used to use, if you want a particulate matter, if you want a toxide variant of the vaccine, every single variety of vaccine is out there. So you shouldn't have an excuse not wanting to take one. And from my little discussion a while ago about the kids and the vaccine, you should understand that this has been there out there for a while. Nobody's trying to tell it. I mean, they might tell you you have to take it, but it is for a reason, and it's for a good reason. We have been doing this for years upon years, and look at how it just broke down the other day in front of me. I was like, wow, this is really strange. And this is why I have to discuss these things on the radio so people can understand. Nothing has changed. It's the same thing. It just highlighted me on what was going on.
Let me take this. Hello, good morning.
Good morning to you, Weber. Good morning to
Greetings
Dr.
you.
Thwaites.
Yes.
Dr. Thwaites, I want to give you compliments of the season and all the best for the new year. Continue the job that you are doing. I was going to ask the question before I asked about the booster if it's necessary. Because when I took my first shot, I was really sick for like about 2 or 3 days. But when I took my second shot, I didn't even remember I took a vaccine or anything. I really want to say to Dr. Thwaites this morning, I so appreciate what you do. Most times I don't get all of it because I have to go to work, but I try to get as much as I can. And you have given us so much information. I have learned so much about this whole COVID thing and this vaccine thing that I wasn't getting those answers here. And by listening to your program, I have learned so much, and you have encouraged me so much. And I think now I'll go and take my booster. Thank you so much. And Webo, thank you for having Dr. Thwaites come in to educate the public. That's something that we really, really were lacking. Thank you. Have a good day, guys.
Thank you, and you have a good season.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Doc.
Yes, and thanks for the greetings. Weber Mr. The big drummer for market up by the market up there in Gingerland.
Yes.
He used to come down every Christmas and go. Some of these things have changed. We've looked at life differently nowadays with all of this, and the question is whether or not we're going to get back to some semblance of normalcy. But I think we are progressing in a positive way. Again, we're looking at changes, and I think everybody, and I'm not blaming anyone right now, but we are looking at these diseases and the changes with the places that are unvaccinated. One of the reasons why this variant developed in Africa was that the people were not being vaccinated. And we, Rebel, from the first time you pulled me on this program, we spoke about the little niche that the virus is going to get with the people who are unvaccinated, where it finds a home so that it can multiply. They can recover now. Whoever is healthy and they bounce back quickly, they can recover. But always remember, it's not about the recovery. It's about giving that virus an opportunity to multiply so you can get the different variants from developing. Again, nonsense variants don't do nothing, but the virulent types that variate is where the problem is. And you can see the trends now. Alpha, Beta, Delta, Omicron, they are out there, and it's because we have these little niches where the virus can keep multiplying and multiplying and multiplying. And I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure. I am absolutely looking at how it variated and how it jumped species, and I think it's the same principle. It was developing in the bats. It was multiplying and multiplying, but during that multiplication time, it variated, and when it variated, it was able to jump species. Here we're seeing the same thing again. It's now in the human beings, and it's multiplying, but it's variating and changing, and changing and changing. We're obviously seeing some of the effects of this virus, that it's how it's multiplying and changing. That's why we have these variants. That's why it's so different in how it spreads to people. It's contagious now, but it's not as virulent as the other alpha, beta, and delta that was destroying us. We're seeing that. And so right now, that is going to be the predominant variant. But the good thing about it, which is what good news, I say, it's not as dangerous as the other three variants that we had before.
You know, Doc, I found something that I wanted to highlight in what you had said earlier in responding to an earlier caller, and then something similar that the last caller just pointed out. You said that when you got it, your shot, you were sick for 2 or 3 days.
Yes.
And the caller just said when they took their first shot, they were sick for 2 or 3 days. And I think, Doc, that those testimonies will help. And especially you being a medical doctor, for people to learn that you were sick, you know, it perhaps can give them a little comfort. And because sometimes people think that certain things, if they're negative, you know, they're isolated to them, and so they feel bad about it, you know, that way.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
then when you learn now this lady said she was sick, but here is she giving a testimony and saying, well, I got over it, and so on. So I just wanted to highlight those.
No, and when she said that a while ago that she was sick for 2-3 days, and I said, yeah, I'm sick for about the same time, I realized what you're saying. You picked it up, and I picked it up, and you know what I mean? And when I got the second dose, I wasn't sick as much as the first one, which is what she's saying. And I think for some people get sick for the 2 shots, but most people on the 3rd shot don't get a response. They just move on, and they do well. And then just put a little extra antibody titer, the numbers that makes the difference, and that's what's important. The titer that you develop with the vaccine.
Okay, Doc, I'm going to put you on hold. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Robert.
Yes.
Season's
greetings to you.
Yeah, thank you. Season's greetings to you, and season's greetings to all listeners. So, Robert, I would like to endorse what the previous caller said. I took the vaccination earlier because I realized it was going to be mandatory central. And for my own reasons, I decided I'm going to take the vaccination. I took the vaccination, I took the second dose, and I was told that I was fully vaccinated. So when they started talking about the booster shot, well, logically thinking, I started asking, well, if I'm fully vaccinated, what booster shot? What's the booster shot? Well, thankfully, Dr. Thwaites just explained it. I think these programs that we're doing with Dr. Thwaites are very useful, and Dr. Thwaites has done an ace job in explaining all the ramifications of this disease and vaccination and all that. And that's why when I have an opportunity, I like to listen, because I learn a lot. I get where it's going. I get well information. I'm gonna go see if I can get my shot from them and make arrangements and we'll go. Thank you very much. The other thing is when I had the first dose, yeah, I had the usual. I mean, it was no surprise to me. I've had vaccinations all my life, and I had the usual reactions, you know, fever and all that. I went to sleep early, wake up about 4 o'clock, and I was okay. I had the second dose, and the only reason I know I had it is because I know I had it, and I had to feel my hand to know that I had it. No effects at all, none. In order to know that I had a vaccination, I had to feel the area. Even the injection site wasn't very painful. What Dr. Thwaites is saying there, I could feel that out. I had the same experience. Thank you very much, Bobo, and thank you very much, Dr. Thwaites.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, and have a good season.
Thank you.
Okay, Doc.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what most people need to understand. You need that little extra protection. And what they're saying out there, and again, and everybody, I mean, it's not because Dr. Thwaites says so, but the data, the numbers, the people are showing out there, and what they're showing now is that with the booster, Myron doesn't do anything to us. It's with the booster, it helps. It protects us against that also. Now, just the extra protection is what's important, and people out there again and again and again. It's not the first time in the world we do boosters. We do boosters for tetanus. We do boosters for hepatitis. These are some of the things that people don't even know or think about.
Okay, Doc, I'm going to put you on. I'm going to put you on hold again, Doc. Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning to Dr. Thwaites and Mr. Weber. Only the best will do. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Thwaites. And enjoy your season. Bye. Bye.
Oh, okay, thank you, and you have a good season as well.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, Doc.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's really the season to be joyous, and
Yeah.
thanks for your greetings, and all the best to you, and I hope you have a wonderful season too. Weber, just the point is that we need to get across is vaccination is very, very important. Even if we are up to 80% vaccinated, we need to get that other 20%. We need to get to the 100% because that's what has protected us from mumps, measles, and rubella. The booster shot is important. I mean, we do this all the time. Tetanus toxoid, hepatitis B. These are nothing unusual. Again, I think one of the things that we to bear in mind is that the whole world was so concerned about these vaccines and everything that we, the scientists and the medical profession, had to make sure that these things really are effective. And so therefore, getting the third shot is something that is important to each and every individual. It gives you more antibodies, more immunity, and it helps guide you to protection and so that you don't get sick, you don't get to the hospital. Now, most of the cases that we're seeing now in Antigua, nobody's going to the hospital, and that's because, again, majority of the people are fully vaccinated. So we're not seeing people in the ICU, we're not seeing people at the hospital being admitted. Most of the people are in isolation at home. Bear in mind, Weber, the ones that are going to the intensive care unit, the ones who require oxygenation, some stuff, are the ones who are not vaccinated. I was just seeing a program on TV of two persons who got the disease, one vaccinated and one unvaccinated. And when you look at the X-ray, I know the general public don't look at X-rays like I do, but when you look at the X-rays of these two people, you could see the big hell of a difference between the unvaccinated and the vaccinated. This thing, when you don't have antibodies on board, it destroys you. It destroys you. And not only that, your body destroys itself because it gives you these general reaction. It's a very general reaction, not specific. And with the general reaction to the virus, it causes more destruction.
Doc,
It causes, yeah. Mhm.
yeah, quickly. What I have noticed, and how would you advise? Some folks who are vaccinated, because a lot of folks have been vaccinated now, they have now dropped their guard a little. How would you advise? Now, before you, let me take this caller first and then we can answer, okay? Hello, good morning.
Good morning. I have a question for Dr. Thwaites.
Yes.
I have friends who are in Europe, and the gentleman had COVID. He also had, I think he had COVID after he had his first shot, so they're regarding him as fully full immunity. So what I'm asking is if he should come to me if we still have to quarantine for 14 days.
Oh, okay. Doc will answer, okay?
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you then.
Okay, Doc.
Yeah, and that's a great question. If the person is fully vaccinated, okay, again, and his question is very technical again. It's fully vaccinated means you have the 2 shots. You don't have to quarantine for the 14 days. You put that out and represent. Now, persons who have gotten the disease and have gotten one shot afterwards, they have shown them to be very well immunized and they have developed antibodies. But by definition, they don't consider them to be fully vaccinated until they get their second shot. And so that might be a question, or might be a question on them coming in with just 1 shot. What they need is the 2 shot of the AstraZeneca. Even though you've had the disease, to be fully vaccinated. They're not taking that. And remember now, your card, you have to demonstrate your card, and your card will show that you have 2 doses of the vaccine, and that's what they consider to fully vaccinate. So for documentation purposes, the 2 shots should be appropriate enough for them to come in and not be quarantined as per the protocols for the disease and for entry into the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. So that person should have 2 shots, even though they had the disease and gotten 1 shot, and it's showing that it's good immunity. The recommendation is the 2 vaccines to come in.
Okay, and so to quickly to the question that I asked, how would you advise? You have the fully vaccinated, because I realize that a lot of folks are now letting down their guard and going around free without mask and so on, and sometimes you don't even know who is vaccinated, but everybody is there without mask. And
and that is so true. And I questioned that the last time I was down there. We're all mingling. You take the water taxi, and some people are under the water taxi and no mask. But I mean, it's recommended, and you wonder, and you sit there and you wonder who vaccinated, who not vaccinated. You can't even ask a question,
right?
And kind of stuff. I still think that we're still even though our data is saying 80%, we still need to continue at this stage of the game to wear our mask, hand sanitize, wherever you are, amongst whoever you are. Now, some places, and they don't do it in the Federation, but like places like Antigua, if you're going into a restaurant, you have to show your vaccination card. It's mandatory. So you cannot go, if you're not vaccinated, you can't go into you can't go into a club, or you can't go anywhere. Now, in those circumstances, if everybody's fully vaccinated, most people will drop their mask and deal with whatever they're doing. But if you're going into a community where you don't know who's vaccinated from who's not vaccinated, and you're let's suppose you're on the water taxi, because you don't know who's on there and who vaccinated, you should continue to wear your mask and do your hand sanitization until you are sure that everyone around you are fully vaccinated. And that's what we talk about when we say you're in the bubble. You're in that bubble because everybody's showing their vaccination card. Then you are quite appropriate to drop your guard. But otherwise than that, if you don't know, you do what is right to protect yourself and protect each and every individual. You hand sanitize, wear your mask. Because now, whoever, with this new variant, remember, it's very contagious. All you have is one slip, and boom, it starts to spread. It's very contagious disease. So, yes, continue with your protocol. If you don't know your surrounding and your circumstances, you always err on the side of to be safe than to be sorry.
Now, Doc, I would like to end on something that a caller had mentioned earlier, that in terms of the information, how he had learned so much and was able to make certain decisions. Now, I'm in this business of communication, and I always tell people, whether it's health, it's politics, or whatever, always try to get your case out, make your case. Because we have seen over the past couple of years, when you don't get your message out and effectively as you can, there are alternate facts. So, as long as you are willing, Doc, I'm here. We didn't get to other topics as promised in the year, But as long as you're game, I'm game, and we're going to continue in this mode and see how we can help.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct, Weber. I think it's been important and informative to the people of St. Kitts Nevis. This program, it answers a lot of questions. People come to my office, and actually I'm going to be in office today up at the Social Security building today from around 10 until sometime in the afternoon. And people do come in and ask questions about COVID. Not for urological reasons, Weber. Whatever you're doing, they come for different things too. And so it's important that we get this information. And we're doing a wonderful job. And I'm hopeful that we might be able to continue to do this, not only for COVID, but for other disease entities, so the people can get the information. I think a lot of people are listening, and a lot of people get the information that's necessary, because there's lots of misinformation and disinformation that's out there that is so wrong.
And contrary to a lot of people, Doc, because of my exposure and my experience, I believe in people, and I believe that the public is much smarter, much adept than people think they are. So I always believe in giving people the information, and you can see what they do with it.
That's why you're in this business, Weber.
Doc,
that's why you're here.
Yeah,
you want to get information, music, everything out to the public.
Yeah. And I trust them. I trust them to utilize it to the best of their abilities. Doc, season's greetings again. Thank you for everything, and all the very best to you.
No problem, Weber. This is a good way to end the year and the season. Hopefully next year we'll begin with a bang also. And if they have questions, they can always call you. You can write them down and put them down, and we will answer them. We'll just be pray to God and be hopeful that next year will be a lot better for each and every individual. And we must work together as a unity. We cannot individually carry this whole country by ourselves. We got to work with unity as a team, whatever color or party affiliate that you are. We do this for us, for the people of the country. And thank you, Weber, and thank you for being the voice of Nevis, so that these people can get the information. It's so important for them, and it's important for them to know. And trust me, you are so correct. The general public is very smart, and they use most of this information to help themselves and help each other. Unity is the key, my brother. Unity is the key. We work for every individual in this federation. We do, and we do hard work, and we do good work, and that's what makes us the best country in the world.
Okay, Doc. Take care.
Take care. See you soon, Webo.
Yes, all right.
From the Caribbean's powerhouse.